everyone, welcome to my vlog from my 4-day trip to Croatia in October 2025. We flew out at an early 5:55 a.m. We regretted our decision to book an early flight, which saved us about £25 rather than getting the late one. But once we had fueled up on coffee, tea and breakfast, we were raring to go. So we flew with EasyJet from London Gatwick to Split. The flight was very quick, it was only about 2 hours, and the view coming into Croatia was beautiful. We decided to get the public bus to the city centre. The number bus that you need is number 37 and you wait for it just outside the arrivals terminal. The ticket was €3 each. You can buy it from the driver on the bus, but you do need to scan it on the bus sort of as you go down the carriage. The journey takes about 50 minutes and it was quite busy on the bus because it's a public bus, and it does drop you off at the bus station about 20 minutes walk from the centre of Split. We stayed at the Stone Rose apartment. We booked it on booking.com. It was a 1-bedroom apartment with a lounge, kitchen, bathroom and lovely views across the harbour. We paid about £50 per night, so it was really reasonable and it was a great location for everything that we needed. So we unpacked and headed down to the harbour to grab some food. We found a burrito place and ate it on the waterfront, and then we headed out to explore. Our first stop was the Split sign where we took some photos, and then we walked around the harbour and through Split. Little alleyways were really fun to explore. There's lots of cool buildings. And then we headed towards Margin Hill, which is about a 35-minute walk from the centre of Split. So you make your way through some quite steep alleyways and up some steps, but the view at the top is worth it. If you're feeling adventurous, there's more steps to climb to more viewpoints. And also a donkey zoo right at the top. That evening we wandered along the Riva promenade to find something to eat, and we stopped at Buffet Fife as it had good reviews for traditional Croatian food. The inside of the restaurant was spacious and it had a really nice atmosphere. And we went for pasticada, which is a traditional Croatian dish of beef and gnocchi, and it was honestly one of the best meals I've ever had. It was delicious. The next morning we headed out to explore Split. Unfortunately the weather wasn't too kind to us, but we headed down to Blatvić Beach, I think that's how you say it, which is a sandy beach that is busy in the summer but not so much when it's raining. So there's places to change and even showers along the water's edge. The waves were choppy today, but it is safe for swimming in the summer. We then headed along towards the other end of the beach. Unfortunately though, the skies did open, so we stopped off at a cafe and taking shelter, having a cup of tea and a coffee before continuing our exploration. Fortunately, the weather dried up, so we found a place for lunch called Lola's and we were able to sit outside. The food here was delicious. I had a chicken and gnocchi dish and Lee had some lamb chops. And then we explored the old town of Split, wandering around the little streets and the alleys. And there's even a museum called Froggyland dedicated to, you guessed it, stuffed frogs. Another downpour forced us to take shelter underneath a shop awning, but it wasn't all bad as it turned out to be a gelato shop, so it would have been rude not to sample their produce. Fortunately, the rain stopped again, so we headed for the Diocletian's Palace, which is probably one of Split's most famous landmarks. The little alleyways were lovely to walk around, and then we headed towards the bell tower. We paid €14 each to head up it. The steps are quite steep, but it's worth it for the views at the top. They control the number of visitors up there, so it's not too crowded, and at one point we had the view to ourselves. Later that evening, we headed back to the Riva Promenade as there's loads of restaurants here. So after a wander around the town at night, we headed to a place called Piccolo, which has outdoor heaters and blankets so you can eat outside in all weathers. Lee had seafood ravioli and I had a carbonara. They're not traditionally Croatian, but it was still yummy. I found the food in Split fairly reasonably priced, however Dubrovnik, where we go later, was quite expensive, and we finished our meal with another gelato as we made our way back to our apartment. The next day, we were up early for a day trip to Dubrovnik. We booked this through Get Your Guide and we paid £58 each, and it was a 12-hour trip. You get picked up on the Riva Promenade and the tour is run by Grey Line Tours. We set off at about 7 a.m. and drove the 3 hours to Dubrovnik. However, we did stop off at a beautiful coffee stop with amazing views. We arrived in Dubrovnik around 11:30 and started off with a guided tour with our tour leader who explained the history of Dubrovnik, particularly throughout its time in the Croatian Wars, before we were given some free time to wander off by ourselves. There were lots of little alleyways and numerous Game of Thrones references, as that's where it was filmed. And we saw the Dubrovnik version of the Spanish Steps and wandered around for ages. One of the most famous activities to do in Dubrovnik is to walk the city walls. We didn't do this, mainly because we were short on time and wanted to see other bits of the city, but also because of the cost. It's €40 for a ticket. However, it was cool to look up and see the people walking along the top of the walls, and had we had more time, then maybe we would have done this. We had lunch down a little side street, which was lovely, however very pricey. So Lee had a black ink risotto and I had a chicken stir fry, and both meals came in at around €25 each, and the soft drinks were about €7. After lunch, we headed down to the harbour and wandered around again, watching the boats heading off on day and afternoon tours. We then wandered around to Bonja Beach, which took around 20 minutes walk from the harbour front. This is a pebbly beach, but it's beautiful and the water was nice and warm for a little paddle. We then left Dubrovnik at around 3 p.m. and on the way back stopped in this beautiful town as some of our group were doing some oyster tasting. So this is the name of the village. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it was beautiful, the buildings were beautiful and the gardens were so fragrant. The drive home during the sunset was beautiful, and we got back around 6:30, ready for another early start the next day to Krka National Park. Again, this was booked with Get Your Guide. However, on both trips the driving looked quite easy, so I would consider hiring a car and doing this as an independent trip. The trip with Get Your Guide was £23 each, however we did have to pay additionally in cash for our national park entrance tickets, and the price differs depending on what time of year you go. We arrived in Krka National Park and were dropped off at the coach point. The views everywhere were stunning, especially in the autumn. There is a walkway trail to follow, but be mindful of arriving at the same time as a big group. However, the path doesn't get too congested. The national park is absolutely stunning and you could easily spend hours here following the trail at your own pace. The main attraction is the big Krka waterfall, where you get several glimpses of it before reaching it. Unfortunately, you can no longer swim in the waterfall, but the views are spectacular. There is then the option to catch the boat or to walk along the river to the town of Skradin. The boat takes about half an hour and runs every hour. Once you arrive in Skradin, there are places to eat and lots of things to explore. One of the places we went up to is the Turina Fortress, which offers amazing views over the town. There is also the local beach, which is pebbly, but there are umbrellas and benches to sit on. We sat here with our feet in the water for about half an hour, but you can swim here too. You can then get the boat back to the national park. However, our coach met us in Skradin and we headed back to Split. And then that was the end of our trip to Croatia. We packed a lot in 4 days and really enjoyed exploring a new country, and I hope we will be back soon.